Hello guys, it's boy Normally from Sweden, and in this video we are going to be talking about the most recent update to CS, which completely nuked the market. If I sound weird, it's because I'm hella sick. But this topic is too important not to make a video about. It all started here on the 23rd October 2025, when Valve made knives and golds obtainable from trade-up contracts by just using 5 red skins, and now you can trade up to a gold. This is like straight out of a McSkillet prank video. I can't believe they made this a real thing. Now, before I talk about how this is gonna impact the market and for the future, I want to thank today's video sponsor, which is CS Money. CS Money is a trusted trading site and marketplace where you can quickly trade for a brand new loadout in just a couple of seconds. They have reduced prices in the trade mode and a huge selection of filters for their over 1 million skins listed that have instant delivery. They've got many payment methods like cards, PayPal, crypto, and much more, and you can always trade your skins if you can't deposit. Their market mode also has a feature with lower prices and discounts, as well as an instant sell feature where they recently increased prices on user skins, so you can insta sell them and receive more cash to spend on skins or cash out. So make sure you try out CS Money from the link in the description, and thank you CS Money for sponsoring. Now let's get back to the video. Okay, so first of all, how does this update impact the ecosystem of skins? Well, it's pretty significant. Ever since day 1 of CSGO skins and CS2 skins, knives and gloves have only ever been obtainable from cases. You would get cases as a drop after playing a game or leveling up, and you would have a very rare chance of getting a gold. In every single case, the gold is always either a knife or a pair of gloves. And it's always the same chance, 0.256% to open a gold, which is roughly 1 in 390 chance. Everyone had the exact same chance for a gold, and there was absolutely nothing you could do to increase your chance of a gold. When opening cases, you were also kind of capped by, for example, the daily Steam spend limit of $2,000, just the time it takes to open a case, the animation, and of course, the inventory limit. With this update, if you could now just spam as many trade-up contracts as you want, that's a game changer, obviously. First, why was this update added? Well, I think it's because of 2 main reasons. I think reason 1 was to drive more customers back to the Steam community market. All of the reds were very undervalued for the longest time, like an MP7 Bloodsport, you know it's worth about €2 or even less. Meanwhile, the more expensive knives like Karambit Lore Factory New used to be way over $2,000, which is both the market limit in price and the Steam wallet balance limit, so Valve really didn't make any money from these super expensive knives and gloves that were never listed on the market. Because as you know, if you sell something on the Steam market, let's say for €1,000, Valve are gonna take a huge chunk of that as their fee. By increasing the price of reds and lowering the price of golds, they're kind of equalizing everything, and many more sales will happen on the Steam community market. Reason 2 could be that Valve are just looking for another way for people to obtain golds. Previously, like I said, there was only one way to get golds, from cases. Well, now there's a new way to get golds from trade-ups, and it's the first time ever in CS we have another way of obtaining golds. This, along with the newly released Genesis terminals, along with the Armory Pass, which also is basically just like a Fortnite store, I think these could be the first steps Valve are taking towards moving away from cases completely. As you know, there's huge problems with government regulations and the EU banning loot boxes, and for example, already Belgium and Netherlands have banned cases completely, and Paris have heavily restricted them, and Valve had to circumvent that with the X-ray cases, only available in France. Now, for the actual update, of course, panic started as soon as the update dropped. Misinformation also contributed to early panic because the update was bugged. The golds you would get from the trade-ups were labeled as not tradable, not marketable, making people think that the newly traded up golds would never be tradable, but that was just false, and just an early glitch of the update. This update understandably absolutely murdered the CS2 skin market. At the time just before the update, the market cap, basically the entire value of the skins market, had just surpassed $6 billion. The market 2 days after the update reached a low of just about 3 billion. Here it says 3.9, but here you can see Price Empire, who supply these stats, have a more accurate number of just about $3 billion flat. That means on average every single single skin in Counter-Strike dropped by about 50% in value. Unfortunately, in reality, the price drop of the golds especially were far worse than just 50%. So I made a little spreadsheet showing the prices of all of these cool skins before the update and after the update, and I thought we'd check them to see just how bad this update was. Sport Gloves Hedge Maze went from a price before the update of $9,000 to a price in the middle of the crash to just $2,600. That's a more than 70% decrease, or a dollar decrease of minus 6,400. Pandora's Box, about the same, almost 70% decrease. These went down almost $6,000. Karambit Doppler Phase 2 was one of the worst affected ones. It went down almost 80% from $5,000 to under $1,100. The Butterfly Doppler went from 9.7k to 2.7k. It lost $7,000. The Karambit Ruby went from about 14,000 down to 5,000, a loss of over $9,000. Another wild example is the Butterfly Emerald, which went from a pre-update price of $21,000 to only $5,800. It lost over 15k. The cheapest gloves in the game were before the update about $100 or so, but during the update you could legit buy a pair of gloves for just about $26. Same for the cheapest knife. Before the update it was almost $100, but during the crash it was almost under $30. Insane. Now there's more examples of this. Basically every single glove and knife went down something like 60 to 70 to 80%. Now of course already some of the prices have already bounced back, which means that they're no longer anywhere near that lowest price we saw during the crash, but in my opinion it just showed how much impact this update had on the market. Some of the skins which were in my opinion maybe the most fucked are gloves that are factory new. That's because these used to be incredibly rare to get in factory new because of their 0.06 float cap, but nowadays you can very easily trade up to a pair of factory new gloves guaranteed. That's because if you have 5 ingredients in the trade up that all have a float value of lower than 0.0067, which is very easy to get, 67, LOL! Then you're actually guaranteed factory new glove outcome. You can see all of these gloves you can get are factory new, and that's all because of the new way trade up contracts are calculated. So yeah, I think there's an actual chance we see a pretty decent increase in the amount of factory new gloves we have. Even though I lost a ton of money in this update, I was still pretty lucky. So lucky, in fact, that many people actually believed that I somehow had insider info about the update. Like this guy. Nah, he sold everything. He got insider knowledge. Yeah, I'm sure you just had a feeling you had to sell them all. How the fuck did he know to sell? Well, and a bunch of Jew emotes, bro, come on. Well, people think that I had insider knowledge because about 2.5 months ago I recorded the how much is my inventory worth video, but I didn't release the video instantly. No, because after I had recorded that video, I decided, okay, it's time to sell my inventory. And this video was meant to be my last, like, okay, here's my inventory showcase before I sell it. And after I had sold most of my inventory, about 2 months after, I just released the video and I didn't think more about it. If you're wondering why it still looks like I have a lot of skins, it's because all of these are on trade hold, and with them there's nothing really you can do. As you can see, most of the tradable skins that I had are actually sold. Then fast forward to the day of the update, I managed to hit another stroke of luck by selling the last large portion of tradable inventory that I had just 5 hours before the update dropped. Some of the items I sold in those last few hours were Butterfly Black Pearl, Skeleton Black Pearl, Op Gungnir, Nomad Ruby, Bayonet Ruby, and way more skins. A total of $80,000 in skins that I somehow managed to sell literally just a few hours before the update. That's absolutely insane and so lucky. Now finally, what do I think of the future of skins and their pricing? Well, I think in the short term, we're kinda fucked. We just had the biggest shift of value ever in CS, and it's gonna take a long time time for the market to adjust. Why would anyone spend $1,200 opening 390 cases on average to get the gold if they could just trade up to a guaranteed one for just $200? As you can see, we have a lot of price adjusting to do. If the golds end up being too expensive, then people are just gonna use up the reds to trade them up to golds for profit, and these trade-ups are gonna decrease the supply of reds, meaning that the reds are gonna go up in price, the golds are gonna go down in price, and eventually the reds will be too expensive, so people won't trade them up. And then the golds are gonna go up in price. It's basically like a long just equilibrium. That's a big word I just learned. This is a process which has to occur naturally over a long period of time for people to regain trust in the markets and to see how everything plays out. In the long term, I'm talking from months to years, we're guaranteed to see a stabilization and eventually, hopefully, a price increase. But one thing is certain though, and that's making me a little worried, and that's the loss of trust in Valve. I for one know that I will never have as much money in CS skins as I did have this last year. If Valve have such a blatant disregard for the price of skins, why risk holding on to them? What's stopping Valve from actually adding the sticker swap tool from my previous April Fool's video? Well, nothing it seems. What's stopping them from making souvenirs trade-upable? Or even other extreme updates like re-adding old collections like the Norse collection with the Gungnir or the Cobblestone collection with the Dragon Lore to either an active drop pool or as a maybe limited edition item in the Armory Pass. Because remember, these are also items too expensive for the market, so it's really not in Valve's interest to have them be that expensive and rare. Well, we kinda used to know that Valve wouldn't do updates like this. In the 12 years I've been trading skins, the most extreme skin updates Valve have done have just been annoying for the average player or trader, like the 7-day trade hold, which is just annoying but doesn't really hinder any functions or change the ecosystem, or the trade protection, which also doesn't really change the ecosystem too much other than the fact that you can now revert trades if you got scammed. But this update is completely different. This update not only has a direct effect on golds, making them less rare and less cool, but in a sense also punishes people who own knives or gloves. The only people who didn't lose money on this update were people who didn't have skins. Trust is lost and there's no question about it. My question is, how much will you guys trust Valve to not lower the skin prices another 70% in the future? Because I don't really trust that they won't, which is very scary. So thank you guys for watching. Now I'm gonna go contemplate life after they made golds less rare, less cool, and I'm wondering, should I even keep opening cases? I don't know. Whoop him!